We're jumping straight into BriaCell Therapeutics today. Everyone is watching the price action, but the real story is the H1 2026 Phase 3 clinical readout in metastatic breast cancer.
Exactly. You're tuned into the Easy Money Show, where we make sense of the market's biggest moves. I'm glad you're with us.
Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss our breakdown of these massive catalysts.
And this is a massive one.
Oh, absolutely. So let's just frame the bull case. The overall sentiment, it feels pretty hot, weighted at about plus 0.30.
It is. And it seems like the market is, choosing to focus on the clinical momentum and kind of ignoring the financial noise for now.
Which makes sense when you hear the elevator pitch. BriaCell is targeting a really high unmet need in metastatic breast cancer. We're talking about a potentially transformative therapy.
And this isn't a small market. This is a disease that, claims over 40,000 lives a year in the U.S. alone. The need is massive.
So what's so special about their approach? The competitive moat seems to be built around the technology itself.
It is. It comes down to their patented off-the-shelf immunotherapy platforms. You'll hear the names BriaIMT and BriaOTS.
We should probably pause on that term off the shelf, because
Right.
that's the real game changer here, right? We hear a lot about autologous therapies.
We do. And autologous is, think of it like a custom-tailored suit. It's incredibly personalized. You have to take the patient's own cells.
Ship them off to a lab.
Right, spend weeks modifying them just for that one person and then infuse them back in. The whole process is just incredibly complex, it's slow, and it is wildly expensive.
So BriaCell's approach, being off the shelf,
Yeah,
it's more like the ready-to-wear version.
that's a perfect analogy. Exactly. They use a standardized bank of cancer cells. The personalization comes from something much simpler. HLA matching.
Human leukocyte antigens.
Yep. So instead of a full cellular re-engineering process for every single patient, they just match the pre-made therapy to the patient's immune type.
Which means it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's way more scalable.
And that's how they protect their potential share of the market. But it's not just the delivery system that's getting attention, it's the efficacy.
Right, the phase 2 data. This is where the story gets really compelling, because the therapy seems to work best in the patients who need it most, the ones who are resistant to current treatments.
Yeah, and we should define that. We're talking about patients who are CPI resistant or ADC resistant.
Checkpoint inhibitors and antibody-drug conjugates.
The modern pillars of cancer treatment. Think drugs like Keytruda or Trodelvy. If you fail those, your options become very, very limited.
And it gets even harder. They also saw good results in patients where the cancer spread to the brain, CNS metastases.
Which is a huge deal. The blood-brain barrier is notoriously difficult for most drugs to cross, so any success there is a massive differentiator.
We can actually put some numbers on this. The phase 2 data showed survival metrics, up to 2 times better than the benchmarks?
Up to 2x overall survival and progression-free survival compared to, literature benchmarks from drugs like Trodelvy and similar patient groups.
Now, I have to ask, cross-trial comparisons, these literature benchmarks, they can be a little tricky, can't they?
That's a very fair point. They're never perfect. It's not a head-to-head study. But the signal was so strong, especially in that CPI and ADC-resistant group, that it just far exceeded what you'd expect.
Strong enough that the FDA paid attention.
It was. They got Fast Track designation, which is a clear signal of that high unmet need. Plus, they have a collaboration with the National Cancer Institute.
And the visibility on this trial is just skyrocketing. I mean, it was featured in Nature Medicine.
In their 11 trials shaping 2026 list. I mean, that's not just Wall Street hype. That's peer-reviewed validation that this trial is important for the entire oncology field.
And they keep de-risking it. The latest updates from SABCS 2025 confirmed the survival data, and this is key, identified predictive biomarkers.
Yes, the NLR and Th1 markers. This is so important.
Okay, break that down for us. What do those markers tell them?
So, think of them as signposts. NLR is the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio. A high ratio usually means more inflammation, a suppressed immune system, not good.
And Th1.
Those are helper T cells. You want to see those. They indicate a strong anti-tumor immune response is happening.
So by looking at these markers, they can basically predict which patients are most likely to respond.
Precisely. It lets them tighten up the patient selection for the big phase 3 trial. They're not going in blind. They're going in with a very specific data-backed hypothesis about who this will work for. It just massively increases the odds of success.
Okay, but every story has another side. And for a clinical stage biotech, that side is almost always about money. BriaCell is pre-revenue.
And that is the flip side. That's the inherent financial pressure. All of this amazing science costs a fortune, and we have to look at the cash burn.
Looking at the numbers, their subsidiary, BriaPro, had cumulative losses of over $1.18 million by mid-2025.
And that burn rate is accelerating. Q3 2025 showed a net loss of almost $250,000, driven entirely by R&D as they ramp up for this trial.
With zero revenue, that means they're in negative free cash flow territory. So how do you fund a huge global phase 3 trial?
You raise capital, and that always means one thing for shareholders.
Dilution.
Ah,
Which brings us to the recent $30 million public offering.
right. They issued 5.37 million new units priced at $5.59. That was the source of that somewhat bearish sentiment score we saw, that minus 0.20. Nobody likes dilution.
But you have to see the context here. This wasn't a frivolous raise. They need that cash. It's the fuel to finish enrolling this trial. They're screening over 160 patients to get to their target of more than 230.
Without that 30 million, the whole timeline just grinds to a halt, which leads us to the single biggest risk that hangs over this entire company.
A binary risk.
Clinical failure. If phase 3 doesn't deliver, if they miss their primary endpoints, the story just completely falls apart.
It's not just a delay. It would push any potential revenue inflection point years into the future. That's the make-or-break event.
It is, but again, we have to stress why the market sees this as, let's say, partially de-risked.
Because of that strong phase 2 data and the biomarkers?
Exactly. They've optimized their chances for success better than most companies at this stage.
Okay, so let's shift to the catalyst calendar. What are we watching for over the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
Well, the big one, the main event, is the top-line data from the phase 3 BRIA-IMT trial. That's the binary event.
And that's still slated for the first half of 2026.
That's the timeline. Enrollment is getting close to completion. We should get interim results after they record 144 patient events or outcomes.
That's the main catalyst, but are there any secondary ones,
Well-
more speculative things to watch?
Definitely. Keep an eye out for any updates on their next-gen platform, Bria OTS plus Natser. There's some speculation it could enter the clinic in the first half of 2026 as well.
And that platform could be used for more than just breast cancer, right?
That's the hope, the idea of a bucket trial expansion. You test the same platform against a bucket of different cancers, prostate, lung, melanoma. Any news on that or more NCI funding would be a big speculative boost.
And we can't ignore the macro environment. There's a definite rotation into immunotherapy stocks right now.
Especially for assets with that fast-track designation that are tackling these high unmet needs. So there's a nice sector tailwind that could amplify any good news.
So if you tie this all together, the core conflict is just, it's perfectly balanced, isn't it?
It really is. You have this massive potential upside that hinges completely on the success of one trial. And that potential has to outweigh the reality of being pre-revenue and burning through cash.
So that's the lowdown on BriaCell Therapeutics. The overall bullish score here is an 8 out of 10 and is driven almost entirely by that anticipated binary upside from the Nature-featured Phase 3 catalyst. A win there could trigger major institutional buying and a significant re-rating of the stock.
But the final thought I'd leave you with is a bit more nuanced. Let's say the trial succeeds, but only in that very narrow patient group defined by the NLR and Th1 biomarkers. How will the market value that? Is a smaller targeted success still a home run? That's the question to mull over while we wait for the data.
Make sure you stick with the Easy Money Show. We will continue tracking the price action and these catalysts as they unfold.